Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining me for this edition of Status Hearing. We'll begin today on the back, as we normally do, with some mindful breathing. I'm going to be doing a standing, slightly more active practice today for a number of reasons. Let's get into the breathing, though. And I want to emphasize today this idea of engaging without tightening. So let's start breathing and begin very gently, filling the belly and allowing the belly to fall. I find that even as we start this every morning, it's very easy for it to become rote and to lose your focus on the subtleties. So if we slow down, try to feel how many degrees your belly fills. Is it a 3 count? And when it falls, how long does it take to fall? Again, can you count 1, 2, 3? And it doesn't have to be a certain count at all. It's just observing what's happening. Make sure that you're engaging in the sides of your waist and your back. So you're engaging from the ribs to the hips, that entire space. And I just spread my arms out because I find when my arms are spread out, it's easier for me to open my chest. I also find for myself that when I wake up, I am instinctively crouched forward because I do experience stress in the mornings. So as we continue to breathe, now moving up to that space in the ribs, from the ribs to the collarbones, and filling into that space, and feeling yourself fill into the sides of that space, in the back of that space. And the back of that space is tricky because we spend so much time with our head forward. These muscles tighten and the muscles in the back get very weak. And so you're not sending a lot of nerve impulses there. When you think about breathing into there, you might even be thinking, well, there's no feeling in there, or there's no muscle in there. Oh, yes, there is. So if your core were a balloon, a cylindrical shaped balloon, fill it up and then just let it go. Fill it up. One more time. And then gently roll to one side, allowing the blood to pool, and then come up to a standing position. So just bring yourself up as slowly as you need to. Bring your legs about hip width apart. And we're going to continue with the mindful breathing. I'm going to turn to the side so that you can see that I'm still thinking about this cylindrical balloon. I'm still filling it forward, sideways, and backward. When we come into a standing position, it's inherently more active. So if you're in a mind state that's active or that's anxious or that can't seem to calm down, standing exercises or standing at a desk is an excellent way to slough off some of that excess energy. So even standing here to do the breathing, if you wake up in the morning and you're just like, I just can't do it, I can't do it, maybe you're getting out of bed and you're thinking, I can't focus on what I need to do. This is a great way to practice breathing. And it's a great way to just wake up your body doing standing postures, standing exercises. So I'm going to bring my feet about slightly wider than hip width and just begin with the arms, inhaling the arms up and then exhaling the arms down. As the arms come up, they want to hunch up near my shoulders. I need to start focusing on my lines of energy to keep everything organized. As I exhale, I'm filing down. Remember, I'm directing energy down this midline and into the tops of my big toe. As I inhale, I'm directing energy up my spine. By the same token, as I inhale, I'm directing energy up the sides of my body into my arm. And as I exhale, directing down the back sides of my body. So as I exhale, that's where I'm pulling my shoulder down. As I inhale, I'm lifting through my spine. I'm lifting the fronts of my shoulders tall. As I exhale, I'm directing down through the front midline of my body. And that's when I'm directing the backs of my shoulders down. So I'm inhaling, widening and straightening, exhaling, contracting in the back and sliding that down. By the same token, though, each time I inhale, I'm lengthening through the spine. So we've got active and passive muscles during the breathing cycle. As I inhale, I'm directing energy up the sides of the front and up the center of the back. As I exhale, directing energy down the center of the front and down the sides of the back. So I'm going to bring my arms up here and just hold them up here and just practice inhaling, lengthening up the sides of the front and the center of the back, or what I have called the feels, the front external energy lines. And I've called this the RIL, the rear internal energy line. So front external and rear internal, these direct up like a triangle, like a triangle. So think about that like a greater than or less than sign. As we inhale, we're opening up, right? We're expanding. As we exhale, this is directing down. These are directing down. So take a nice deep breath. As you exhale, you can drop that left arm and just bring your body over to the side. And I'm slightly wider than hip width. There we go. So I'm bringing the body over to the side and going back to those lines. And you don't have to think about all those lines at once. Just exhale down the front internal line of energy. File down. As we hold this, you get tired or you start feeling it in your back. When you feel these things in other parts of your body and they become painful, 9 times out of 10, it's because we're not engaging that area. So I'm feeling this in the outside of my lower back. And what that tells me is that on the exhalation, for me, rather than focusing on filing down, I need to focus on that rear external energy line, the outside energy line, and I need to direct that down on my exhale. So as I inhale, I can lengthen up my spine. As I exhale, I'm going to direct energy down the outside of the back of my body. So I can keep everything on the back here. But as soon as I make this more active, I can manage that pain a little bit. On an inhalation, I'm going to come back to an upright position, standing nice and tall. Inhale again, fill the whole cylinder. Exhale down, inhale up. And this time we'll go over to the right, drop the arm, and gently lean to the opposite side. Now, in my situation, I needed to focus more on my back because that was where I started to feel some soreness. So I'm just going to keep that for now. As I inhale, I'm going to rile up the spine, rear internal line of energy. And as I exhale, I'm going to reel the rear external lines of energy. They're going to direct down. So my spine is going to direct up. And as I exhale, I'm just going to make a lateral loop and go back down my sides, down the back of my body. Now, I am feeling some tightness in my shoulder. So I'm going to direct this spinal energy. I'm going to make it a little more focused at the shoulder. And when I circle back down my reels, my rear external energy lines, I'm going to be a little more active, pulling that shoulder toward the floor. So inhale, lengthen the spine. Exhale, the outsides of the back of my body are grounding down. On your next inhalation, we'll come back to an upright position. Take a wide stance coming into 5-point star. Arms are nice and wide. The feet are, well, we measure this by imagining a string tied to the wrist. If we drop the string straight down, it should hit that outside ankle bone. So that's how we measure this standing posture. If you stand in this posture, make your feet active. Notice that if you actively feel into the ground with your feet, what does that do to your ankles and the tops of your feet? What does that do? Can you make the thighs active? And when we talk about making things active, that doesn't mean we're tightening. That means we're engaging. And there's a very subtle but very important difference there. So when you inhale, remember the spine lengthens up. We rile up and file down. Let's just stay with that mid line of energy, that internal line of energy, riling up and filing down. Until we can't anymore. Until those shoulders start getting fatigued. Now I'm going to have to direct to the external lines of energy because I need to think about directing energy up to keep my shoulders from hunching forward. And then I need to think about directing energy down to stabilize that lift. Let's think about this. Every force, every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So as firmly as you direct up through the front external energy lines, you're directing down through the rear external energy lines. I'm noticing that I am crooked and I'm just tending, I never noticed this before. But I'm crooked on, well, your right, my left. So I really need to experiment with that. Wow. Activate the front external energy lines, activate the rear external energy lines on the exhale. And again, making these active, not clenching, not tightening, making them active. Wow, I cannot believe that discrepancy. It feels, when I even it out, like I am preferring my right side. Now, as we become fatigued, this is a great way to practice gracefully managing stress, because I don't like this. My shoulder hurts. It's tired. I want to quit. And I can't figure out why I keep on tilting and I can't stand straight. I'm going to press my feet into the floor again, though, and make my legs a little more active. I'm going to breathe into my shoulders. I know this is painful. I'm going to acknowledge that this is a challenge. I am challenged right now. And I'm going to take some deep breaths. And on my next exhalation, I'll go ahead and just relax the arms and feel the sensations in the arms. Again, that is stress. You're in a situation that you don't like. Now, you can get out of that situation. But the purpose of this practice is to get you to try to breathe into it, to try to stay with it, and not for the purpose of, oh, I have to be here for a minute, or, oh, I must be stronger if I, hold it longer. That is not our purpose. Our purpose in holding it is continuing to acknowledge the stress and being with the stress, not running away from it immediately, not tensing up in response to it, not getting all discombobulated and not being able to focus. We're there with it, and we're practicing that in some of these postures. So from here, go ahead and pivot over to the right. So your right foot is going to point forward. Your back foot is at a 45-degree angle. And I'm going to have you just gently bend the knee and straighten. Bend the knee and straighten. If you have a chair, feel free to hang on to a chair. And then we're going to come down. And I'm going to have you just keep walking or wiggling that rear foot back until you can come down into a lunge. And this is a pretty high lunge. And I can hang on to chairs. I can hang on to a door. I can press my hands on the wall. All of that is valid. I can put one hand on the wall and one hand on the hip. And I would encourage that you feel into your hips right now. See if one hip is higher than the other. If that is the case, it is probably going to be your left hip that is higher than your right. That right hip is tight. That right hip doesn't want you to bend into it too much because it's tight. The outside of the thigh, the deeper you go, the more challenge, the more you're stretching the outside of the thigh, and the more it's fighting you. So maybe you're getting tired right here. Acknowledge, I'm getting tired. Acknowledge where the pain is. Find it. Breathe into it, and then gently drop that back knee to the floor. I'm going to point the toe. Again, I can hold on to a chair. I can hold on to a wall. I'm going to point the toe, though. And now I'm going to roll my left ankle to the outside and then roll into the inside. So I'm just going to kind of move my foot. See if I can't feel the front of the rear leg, the front of the left leg. Push the shin into the floor and push all 5 toes, the tops of all 5 toes into the floor. Now, if you feel yourself wiggling, feel free to drop one arm to the floor to help your balance. Another option is to really push down on that back leg, ground it, and really push down on that front foot. A third option, push away with the front foot and resist with the back foot. Push with the front foot, resist with the back shin. Now, are you arching your back? If so, we probably should focus on those rear external energy lines running up the sides of the back of the body. I'm sorry, folks. Running up the spine and then down the sides of the back of the body. So running up the spine, sending energy down the sides of the body and out through the bottom of the little toe. On your next inhalation, I'm going to have you lean forward, walk both hands inside that knee. And from here, slide your foot back a little bit more if it feels good for you. You may find that that right knee is, it's not liking you right now. It's probably pulling away from your shoulder. See if you can tuck that right knee back up nice and firmly next to your right shoulder. And if it's painful, back off a little bit. But again, inhale up that rear internal line of energy. Exhale down the rear external energy lines. Rile up and reel down. So we're staying on the back of the body. On your next inhalation, I'm just going to have you come back, slide that rear foot back so you're in a kneeling position. And then from here, we're going to do a lunge to come back into standing. So press into that foot, that right foot, whole foot, push down, lift up. And we're going to rotate and change sides. Actually, let's start with that 5-point star again. String hits the outside of the ankle. Relax your arms then and pivot the feet. So left foot pointing forward, right foot pointing at a slightly 45-degree angle or so. And we're going to begin to drop down. And you can wiggle your foot back if you want to. I'm just going to stay in this high lunge. Notice the higher you are, the easier this is. But wherever you are, you're engaging. If you feel yourself clenching, try to relax, back off, or breathe into the clenching, acknowledge the clenching. And then as you exhale, begin to just drop down into a deeper lunge. And now I'm going to turn the top of my foot into the floor, press that whole shin into the floor. See if I can wiggle my foot back and forth, just so that you can check in with your ankle and the bottom of your foot. And you might even want to just shift your hips side to side. If you've got some balance here, you want to try resting your hands on your hips. I want to make sure that those hips are level. But as I suspected, one hip is slightly higher than the other. And that as I sit further down, that left hip, it just doesn't want to bend anymore. If I sit further down, it's requiring more length between my hip and my knee, and it's tight and it doesn't want to do it. Now, when we feel tightness like that, one of our first responses is to jam it. Not a good idea. When we feel tightness like that, be kind. And also think about your rubber band. Fix your hip in one space. And then think about sending your knee away from that space. So remember, the rubber band, we've got to hold one end of it or we can't stretch it. So feel the tops of all 5 right toes pressing into the floor. If you want to try to come up into a balance, feel free to do that. And if you're feeling wiggly, you have a lot of options. You can drop one hand on the floor. You can back out of the lunge a little bit. You can press into that rear shin. Or you can push the shin backward and push the front foot forward. And as we hold this, again, you may be feeling some discomfort. Find that point where you're feeling the discomfort and start running your lines right there. So my discomfort is in that rear external energy line on the left. So again, I'm running, riling up the spine, reeling down the sides of the back, and I really need to push into my left butt cheek. Send that energy down, down, around the butt cheek, along the back of the leg, behind the knee, down the calf, and out the bottom of the outside 2 toes. And the more I hold this, the more I start tightening up. I'm getting antsy. Breathe. Acknowledge I'm getting antsy because I'm getting tired, and that pain is stressful. Be very gentle here as you come out of this posture, as you come out of this lunge. Slide that foot back. And from here, we won't come up into standing. I'm just going to have you come to a kneeling position and then bring yourself down to the floor for final Shavasana. Allow yourself to relax, to soften into the floor. And I suspect you can feel some places where it's pretty evident that there's heat or vibrating. There's activity there. And that's a good thing. And again, the more intense the activity is, the easier it is to sense into that. Remember, you're sensing into it from the inside. And particularly when you have experienced pain, we tend to go to areas of pain. And that actually is a good thing. Go to those areas. Be present with those areas. Where are they? Are they in the back of your knees? Are they in your lower back? Don't chase them off. Be present. What does it feel like? Is there a movement? Is there a color? Is there heat? Sometimes when my muscles are really tight, they feel like corduroy. Don't ask what that means. I couldn't explain it. But that's what comes to mind, corduroy. And you might be thinking, oh, that's funny. Something like that has happened to me before too. I just dismissed it. Don't dismiss it. Don't dismiss it. Get curious. Don't dismiss the pain. Don't chase it off. It's there to tell you something. And things like this always bring me back to the premise of the program. which is that experiencing physical sensations in the body and even causing physical sensations to come about, is a way for us to learn to manage stress, a way for us to learn to manage depression, a way for us to learn to manage difficult situations in our lives. I've complained about my knee before. My right knee sometimes gets really painful. I have a junior in high school, and last night he went to his high school's graduation to see his friends graduate, and he came back, and I think it was a little overwhelming for him. I think he began to understand the magnitude of that change. This morning, I woke up early to go swimming, and my knee and my shoulder just didn't want to move. My right knee, my right shoulder, I couldn't get them to move. And I pushed and I stretched. I got in the hot tub. And I finally said to myself, let's find out what this is. What unfolded was my own deep, deep anxiety about losing my child. We all understand rationally that we don't lose our children when they grow up. But there's a change. There's a big change on the horizon. And I don't know what it feels like. And it frightens me. I could feel that in my knee. I could feel it in the back of my neck. I don't know what the subtleties are. I couldn't explain it much more than I have. But it was very, very palpably in my body and is right now. And this is not a comfortable feeling. I'm very vulnerable right now. I don't like it at all. We've reached the end of our time today. Give yourself a stretch. Allow yourself to move in whatever way feels appropriate for you. And gently roll yourself to one side and bring yourself to an upright position. It occurs to me that I've been very sensitive the last few days. A little snappy with my husband. A lot of times fear brings that out in us. What I hope is that I stay brave enough not to push this away, and that I use this as an opportunity perhaps to manage this stress a little more gracefully than I have in the past. And I don't know what that means. I'll have to let you know. I hope this was helpful for you today. If you have any questions or comments about any of the postures or the exercises, please feel free to leave a post on YouTube. And I hope to see you tomorrow. Namaste. Today, I am going to tune back in at 7:45 for a status sit. If anyone is interested, I will be back. Thanks again.